Hi, everyone. Sorry that we're starting a couple minutes late, but I will let you get out early because I know it's been a long day. So thank you so much for coming to our session. We really appreciate it. We do have one of our panelists joining from California, so I'm just going to let everybody give a quick introduction of who they are. And once again, thank you so very much for coming to the last session of the day. That's always fun to be the last session, so thank you for that. But my name is Debra RUH, and I am the CEO of RUH Global Impact, and we work with a lot of large corporations, really helping them meaningfully support our community. But also, I'm the co-founder of billion-strong.org, and we're really excited about it because it's the world's first global identity organization to come together with pride across the world. So it's very exciting. I'm going to tell you more about it. But I also want to, I'm going to pass down to Richard first so he can give an introduction, and then he'll pass it to Susan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Richard STREITZ. I am the COO of RUH Global Impact and co-founder and vice chair of Billion Strong, and I'm very happy to be here.
And I'm Susan MAZRUI. I work in global public policy for AT&T. I'm the board chair of the World Institute on Disability and a member of the board of G3 ICT.
And I'm Fernandez. I work for Cisco System, leading our disability inclusion strategy.
And I'm Dr. Kirk ADAMS, talking to you from my home in Seattle, Washington. I am the managing director of Innovative Impact LLC, which is a company I founded last summer, and I focus on helping companies accelerate inclusion of people with disabilities in their workforce.
Thank you so much. I handpicked this panel. They're really amazing. And some of you came into the audience that I'm going to pick on you too, like Neil Milliken, for example, from Atos. Hey, Neil. We're going to, let me start the presentation. But I'm just going to set it up. So I'm not going to talk to all these slides because you're all going to kill me if I do. But these slides will, we're going to share the slides. So I wanted it to be informational. So once again, Billion Strong is a global disability movement. Next slide. Or do you want me to, this? Some people you just can't teach. So it really is important that we come together, and we all know this. We're all part of Zero Project doing this. But we have to really be able to come out and identify, I would like to hope with pride, our lived experiences with disabilities. And I was talking to a group in the United States, and they said, but what are you going to do to protect us? Well, what we're not going to do is sue people at Billion Strong. There's other people in the States that can do that. We're not going to do that, but we really want to come together and celebrate what we all bring to the table. So we really want to be meaningfully included, but at the same time, we actually have to protect the corporations as well. Corporations are, we have some corporate representatives here, but they're part of our community, but corporations are getting a lot of mixed signals from all the diversity groups. And so we need to make it easier for employers to be able to find us and hire us and work with us in the global supply chain if we are entrepreneurs with disabilities. How do they address caregiver needs? There's so many issues. And we don't want to do it ourselves, we want to do it together. And here's a quote from Dr. Lamondre Pugh: an accessible platform by people with disabilities, for people with disabilities, focusing on identity is critical. So why is it important? And you'll know why this is important, so I'm not going to bore you to death, but we know between 1.3 to 1.7 billion people with disabilities in the world, and a lot of people are still being left out, and unfortunately, not just in developing countries, but in developed countries as well. There's some really sad statistics that we could talk about, but we won't do that. But it's just really, once again, so important that we come together with pride so that people can find us. Because 80% of our community have hidden disabilities. Only 20% of people with disabilities have visible disabilities. So I found out later in life that I'm a member of the community because I know you'll all be shocked, but I have ADHD, which, by the way, I think is a really good thing because it makes you work really fast. But yeah, it could be a little intense too. So, but I have to come on stage and tell you I'm part of this community. I have to tell you I have a beautiful, wonderful daughter with Down syndrome and autism. She's 35 years old. I sadly lost my husband last March due to a traumatic brain injury. That dementia came for him. So that was a sad experience, but all it meant was that I just have a human family, and I'm very proud of my family. So we want to create a fully accessible platform. I see, unfortunately still, we create disability platforms that aren't accessible. We really must walk the walk ourselves. One thing that we'll be doing at Billion Strong, we are not going to let anyone put any information on the website if it's not accessible. But instead of saying, no, we're not going to include you, we're going to help them make it accessible. Because once again, this is about all of us coming together. We know this is one way together to provide a path to inclusion. We started this, and I'm sorry, time is really weird in my head these days, but we started it, I think, in 2021, and my husband was actively dying, so I got very appropriately distracted during that time. And also, in the United States, the Internal Revenue Service also went through COVID, so they got very behind in certifying businesses. So we've got that all together now, but it is really about empowering the community. So part of our community, which we're going to talk about today, but first of all, let me say this. Please, please join the free movement. It's www.billion-strong.org. It is free, and it is really something that we also want to hear from you. We want country partners. We also want partners in every single state in the United States, but in the UAE, we want all 7 of the territories. So we want to include everybody in this effort. So what we're going to talk to you today is one of our efforts. So we really want to support entrepreneurs with disabilities. And Susan and I both were part of an effort in the United States to create DOBI, which is Disabled Owned Business Enterprise. So there are, in the United States, we have one, and of course there's a lot to do. We need to get into the global supply chain, but we don't really see it happening in other countries, and also there's nothing wrong of having multiple options in the United States. So we're gonna do that too. But we really want to make sure that the corporations know how to find us, but not just the corporations, the governments, how do you really find us? And so one way that we can do it is by coming together, but another way we can do it is by creating programs with our partners. So one thing that we are going to do at Billion Strong, for example, is we are going to create certifications for entrepreneurs with disabilities. But we are not going to do it just in the United States, and you just can't do it globally. This is a country thing. As a matter of fact, in the United States, we're the United States, and we have federal, but we also have states. So you can become certified, for example, in Virginia. You can become certified in California, and the rules are different depending on which state you're in. I know we complicate things, but it is a complicated thing. So we want to do this, but we also want to we see sometimes people making money on our community, and that's fine. Please make money as long as we are meaningfully included. We don't want to just be a moneymaker for you. So one thing that we are going to be doing is we're going to make sure every entrepreneur with disabilities that is certified, we will be marketing them. We will be making sure they have entrepreneurial classes. We will be introducing them to, impact funders. We've got to create something around it, a real infrastructure around this. But there's also a lot of stuff already being done to support entrepreneurs with disabilities. So we want those groups to come in and support the efforts. And so we're excited about it, and we're excited about the possibility of what could happen if we all came together. So I get really excited about this stuff. So, but also another thing we want to help them with is marketing and communications. That's something that we happen to be very good at RUH Global Impact. We are very good at getting the word out. And so we want to pass that to the entrepreneurs with disabilities because we have such talent. We have such talent. So we want to make sure everybody can find us. So, and we want to make sure, once again, we're walking the walk, talking the talk, because we can't say, oh, Susan, AT&T, oh, Mary, Cisco, y'all need to be fully accessible, when we're not doing it ourselves, okay? Just saying, it's sort of doesn't send the right message. So Billion Strong is really for all of us, and we hope you'll join us because we need you so much, and also we hope that you will benefit from what we're trying to do. We've got some pretty major partners. We're getting shocked, but so excited too. And I will also say that when Caroline Casey created the Valuable 500 with a lot of our support, the United States, there were US brands that were hesitant because they were getting some mixed messages about it. And anyway, our beautiful, complicated country. But I went to 2 corporations, global corporations, that had joined the Valuable 500. And one of them's in the room, and Neil over at Atos. And I also went to Kevin Bradley, who at the time was, he's changed brands now. But I asked both of these brands, what do you need? What do you need from us? How do we help you be successful with the Valuable 500 and everything we want to do? And Neil was like, where are you? Where are you? I remember, and I've said this to some of you already, but the CEO of Wells Fargo a few years ago in the United States, during we were having problems with our African Americans, killing them in the streets and stuff like that. But he made a comment that got him in big trouble, saying that the reason why they were not promoting African Americans was because they could not find the talent, which is ridiculous. There is so many talented African Americans in the United States. But you know what? Unfortunately, that is true with us. That especially when 80% of us in this have hidden disabilities, we have to tell you we have disabilities, and maybe we don't want to tell you that. So we just thought it was very important to identify who we are. And so thank you, Atos. And Neil has actually looked at presentations, been guiding us, and there's a few other brands that are stepping up, including the brands at the table. So, but this is, there's a lot to this, and that's one reason why I asked Dr. Kirk ADAMS to join us too. He was the CEO of the American Foundation for the Blind for many years, and we are so proud of Kirk ADAMS and what he's done for our community. And now that he's stepped out of that role, he has his own company, and it's really about helping all of us succeed. We all have to come together and succeed. So businesses do want to include us. Corporations really do want to include us, but we are confusing them by not. And you know why we're not disclosing. And do you disclose your identity on your resume? Well, we've always told you, no, don't do that. But we also see groups like LinkedIn, for example. LinkedIn has, they're working on identity stuff. And they actually have, and I'm getting the details of it, but they want to create it so that you can identify yourself on LinkedIn if you're looking for work. You can identify yourself in however you choose to identify. You can identify as part of the LGBT community. You can identify as a woman. You can identify as a person with a disability. All the different groups. And what you do, and I love this, is that you can identify by flagging, but only the recruiters can see that. The rest of your community can't see that, because maybe I don't want to tell the rest of my community, the rest of my followers. So we see groups like LinkedIn stepping in and saying, well, how can we help you? How can we help you be found even if you don't want to disclose? So there's just some very interesting conversations like that going on. And LinkedIn picked me as one of their first 100 voices to highlight, and then they blessed us with $20,000 towards building Billion Strong. So I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. Neil and I do access chat on Twitter, and that's good too, but yeah, we want to be included. So we have a lot of supporters. Here's just a few of them. Very proud that Zero Project's one of them, Access Israel, Enable India, WID, Tatweer. It's really exciting as we're coming together. 97 countries so far. And of course, very proud of the Valuable 500. I don't want to talk too long because I want to make sure that these wonderful leaders can talk. But this already, yay, this slide is already outdated because it says we have 94 countries and we have like 98 now, and we want all countries. So the network is about including organizations of persons with disabilities. We want us included. And so we have 98 countries, but we need 82 more countries. So please, if you, and you can't see this, but if you are not sure if your country is represented, please contact us. No matter what, contact us, because we want everybody included. So, all right, so let's talk, I'll leave that slide up for a minute. And so I just want to ask my panel some questions here. So Richard, you are a former Disney Imagineer. Richard also works with me. Yes, he built, Tokyo Seas, right? Animal Kingdom, you say it.
Well, thank you, Deborah. Yes, I had the great fortune of working and designing 4 major theme parks for Disney while I was working as an Imagineer for them. I did Animal Kingdom in Florida, Euro Disney in Paris, Tokyo Disney Seas in Tokyo, and Disney's MGM, which is Disney's Hollywood now, in Florida. And it was a great honor to be able to work and do that. And that's, frankly, where I first became exposed to accessibility and inclusion, and why it became so important as a younger man working in that field for a number of years. As I left Disney, I took with that experience working with the community and understanding the importance of accessibility and inclusion, and why I tie that experience, that global experience working on these massive projects, into anything that we approach now working with corporations.
And another thing that when I first met Richard and saw his background, Tower of Terror, I don't know if any of you have been in that terrible ride, I don't recommend it. The elevator falls off, anyway, I'm scared of heights. So, but I thought he would just add so much value to these conversations, smart cities and everything, but I was really surprised because people started acting like competitors. We can't be acting like competitors with each other. We're not competitors. There's room for all of us. And so, but Richard, well, I asked Richard a question one time as an entrepreneur, trying to figure this out. I said, well, do you bring people in with disabilities as consultants to make sure? And the way I thought it worked and the way it actually works are so different. And so, do you remember that question? Maybe you can answer that question.
Sure. So in the process, again, working for the Walt Disney Company while we were designing these, we'd actually bring individuals in through the number of different phases of the set of the project, which, of course, makes perfect logical sense. At the very high concept stage, we'd bring a focus group in of individuals with a number of different varying abilities and talk through the process about how we engage and incorporate them into their design. We then go forward and move to about 25 or 30% of the design package with architects, engineers, manufacturing, and so forth. And at that point, again, bring in a focus group and continue to checkpoint to make sure that we are consistent with following and incorporating their needs into making sure that the user experience is consistent with what our goals were for the designs. And then if we do the same thing again at 50%, at 75%, at 90%, and then at 100%. We actually, at a couple points through that phase, we actually also do full-size mock-ups and scale mock-ups of whether it's a ride, attraction, what have you, and actually test with focus groups to go through the attraction, who again make sure that we're on point and on target to make sure that we are creating truly an immersive and interactive experience that meets and satisfies the requirements, to make sure that we are creating the same user experience of peoples from all abilities. And so sure, it was a great expense and important, but for us and what we do and for the product that we deliver, we felt it's absolutely hypercritical to make sure that we include all of those individuals throughout every step of the process.
But the point was, it was very different from the way I thought it would work as an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, it's hard being an entrepreneur. I've never done anything as hard as being an entrepreneur. It is so hard. And sometimes when people say, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I think, don't be negative, because you got to try. If your soul's speaking to you, go be an entrepreneur. But I think we can do a much better job of understanding how corporations work with us and how they include us. And so let me turn the next question over to Susan MAZRUI, who she gave a little description of who she is, but I'm going to add to that because this woman has really led all over the world, but she is such a powerful leader in the United States. And so if you haven't had a chance to talk to her, she's amazing what she's accomplished. She's amazing. So she has done so much for our community and really been engaged, and AT&T has done so much to include us. I think, as a matter of fact, one of their competitors hired us and said, what are they doing? And so we were compared what AT&T was doing to this company, and they needed to pick up the game. Anyway, so I won't tell you who that is. I'll let you guess. But I just want to say she's an amazing leader, and I'm just really honored to be her friend. So thank you, Susan. And I didn't ask you the question, Susan. So, yeah. So, Susan, why, from your perspective as a corporate, somebody that is at a corporate brand like AT&T that's really working hard to include us all over the world, do you think, what do you think about including entrepreneurs with disability? Do you see a need for this? Is it something that you see only in certain countries? Or is this something that you really wish somebody would come in and try to solve so that y'all know how to better support the community?
Well, I have to say I'm fortunate to work for a company whose CEO said publicly that disability rights are civil rights. That's a critical point to start from. But the question that I get most often, which is very similar to what Debra just said, is what kind of jobs can people with disabilities do? And I just want to say yes, all of them. And so what I'm saying here is that there is an opportunity here to have entrepreneurs with disabilities, but they need access to the same startup funds and not to be turned away when they're presenting their plans. It's not necessarily something that is special, but there's experiences that entrepreneurs with disabilities have that other folks don't. There's also the opportunity for us to work with those entrepreneurs either as vendors or eventually as people who come into our companies. One of the things that is a common practice with the best of intentions is to set up programs that have people with disabilities working for an agency or an organization, but not being engaged within the major companies as well. So the companies contract with those organizations. And I challenge you all to think about that, because the separation means we don't have inclusion. And while it is a good step because it's important to support families, it's important for people to have paid work, that's all very important, but the goal should be to have lots of different opportunities. And so when we've worked with agencies or organizations, our role has been to say, yes, we'll work with you, but we want to onboard these folks who have disabilities into our company, who become part of the fabric of our company. They become part of our unions. They become part of our management, and not separate, because until we have people with disabilities included at every level, from entrepreneur to CEO, we won't have full inclusion, and we will all suffer from it. So if we want to make the world a better place, we need to do it by including people with disabilities in the whole spectrum of work and work opportunities.
So not to be like smug, you see what I'm saying about her? She's just amazing. Sorry, Susan. I love being right. Next we're going to talk to Dr. Kirk ADAMS. I met Kirk a few years ago. I'm not turning it on and off, y'all see, I'm not, okay. And he just really, really impressed me with his entrepreneurial spirit and what he was doing to really support people that are blind in the United States. I'm a big fan of the American Foundation for the Blind because it feels that it is very representative of more of the population of the United States, which I appreciate. But he also is a big proponent of making sure we are including our entrepreneurs with disabilities. So Kirk, I would love for you to talk a little bit about some of your vision that we've talked about. How do we really make this happen and add value and make sure that this is not just something that's being done in the United States, but it's being done all over the world?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Again, I'm Dr. Kirk ADAMS. My consulting practice is Innovative Impact, and LinkedIn is the place to connect with me. I'm also a huge fan. Thank you, Jenison Asuncion, for accessibility of LinkedIn. So I'm blind. My retina is detached. When I was 5, I went to a school for blind children for first, second, and third grade, learned my blindness skills, and it was sink or swim. I learned to swim. Learned to swim. So I've been a frustrated, unemployed person with a disability out of college. I've been a successfully employed person with a disability, and I've also employed hundreds of people who are blind and deafblind and blind with other disabilities. And my interest is in thriving and how can we create environments and structures so people with disabilities can thrive. And obviously employment is a huge marker of thriving in our cultures. And here in the US, the employment outcomes for people with disabilities are either twice as bad or half as good as the general population. So, 35% of us are in the workforce compared to 70% of the general population. We're in a narrower band of occupations. Of those with significant disabilities who are employed, over half are working for the government or for nonprofits. And those are two sectors that have limited income opportunities. A lot of people are subsisting at a poverty level with Social Security disability income. So it's not good as far as markers of employment, income, wealth, etc. So I'm an ethnographic researcher. I did my dissertation was an ethnographic study of blind adults who self-identified as successfully employed in large corporations. And one finding was that consistently everyone I talked to had some level of disappointment that they were not, that they had to struggle, that other people were facing barriers, that they were the exceptions rather than the rules often in their companies. But entrepreneurship offers us so many opportunities to thrive. I've joined the Academy of Management, and there's a really interesting field of study of disability and entrepreneurship that looks at the fact that the lived experience of living daily with a disability allows us to develop characteristics that really uniquely position us for success as entrepreneurs. It allows us to carve out our own path, allows us to create our own accommodations with our pace, with our scheduling of how we work, how we address work. Again, the half as bad, half as good, twice as bad. And in the U.S., 12% of the population are self-employed, and I'll just use self-employed as a synonym for entrepreneurship. Of the 35% of us who are employed, only 6% are self-employed. So what Debra and Billion Strong is working toward is professionalizing entrepreneurship opportunities for people with disabilities and connecting us with supplier diversity structures. And supplier diversity, corporate supplier diversity, is really the driver for entrepreneurship for our community. And we're working, and I'm happy to pitch in to work to expand the concepts of diversity, ESG, DEI, all the good acronyms to expand those concepts to be more inclusive of people with disabilities. So I'm really excited about Debra's efforts. I'm here to help, and connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's do this.
Thank you so much, Kirk, and I really would recommend it. He's a wonderful mentor. He's been mentoring us, and I think Kirk's a real gift to the world, so thank you so much, Kirk. So now I want you to hear from a youth leader, and she's really doing amazing things, and I am actually going to do a fireside chat with her tomorrow, so you get to learn more about this really amazing woman that I just met at the M-Enabling event. I walked up to her because she had curly hair, and I was looking for a speaker with curly hair, and I fell in love with her. So, I know I'm bad about falling in love with people in our industry, but we have some really cool people here. So, but Mary, I know that you're representing Cisco, and you yourself are, a person that has your own advocacy journey, which we'll talk about tomorrow. But one thing I would be curious from you, I know that I can ask you the same question as Susan, why is this so important to the brand? But, what would you recommend to younger people that are trying to be seen by corporations or want to be involved in being an entrepreneur? Because I know that you are very entrepreneurial with the way you're living your life. So I was just, any advice that you could give us on that?
Hello? Oh, now it is. Okay. Hi, everyone. Before I start, Mary Fernandez, she, her pronouns, brown woman, curly hair. I'm wearing a black and pink floral shirt situation with green earrings because I got the spirit. So here, let me kind of take a step back a little bit. Love everything that Kirk said and Susan. I think that this idea of resiliency, when we think about marginalized communities, one of the things that we often see is the idea of resiliency, because when you are surviving in a world that systemically excludes you, in order to survive, you have to adapt, right? And when we think about entrepreneurship, when we think about those core strengths of business, one of the core strengths that we see consistently in the research of entrepreneurs who are successful are deeply resilient. I think that as we're thinking about how do you grow your personal brand, understanding who you are, understanding and really grounding yourself and centering yourself in what your core beliefs are is super crucial. And I think the first step in figuring out how do I present myself to the world, because if you understand how you can show up, then all of a sudden the things start falling into place and you start finding your own people. As someone who, I am brown, I'm disabled, visibly disabled, I'm blind. One of the things that I had to figure out was, what am I passionate about? And I figured out pretty recently throughout my journey in my career is that my kind of purpose for being here, my why, is to create space for people with disabilities to step up and share their own experiences. And so if I know my why, then all of a sudden I can wake up every day and figure out what and the how, right? And so I think as you're thinking about your own leadership experience, your own advocacy experience, is figuring out your why, figuring out what you stand for, and also knowing that growing is uncomfortable, and if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. I think about it from, if you think about it from like a working out perspective, exercising perspective. When we build muscle, we actually have to break it down in order to strengthen and build back up. And so I think that if you are constantly making sure that you're making yourself uncomfortable by learning, by listening to others' experiences, and knowing that you don't know everything, I think those are really important concepts. And last, I think finding community, just finding your people, finding mentors, and leveraging whatever resources are available to you. For me, one of the big things was my education. I decided to get my master's in business administration because I wanted people to take me seriously. And in the United States, a graduate degree in business administration is very helpful. But I decided to leverage my network and build that community. But all of those things came together through the previous ones that I mentioned.
Let me see what I said about her too. Wow, amazing. And this is our future. These young people are our future. I'm just so impressed. Susan, one.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is that discomfort is part of the human experience, but the biggest challenge I believe that people with disabilities have in employment is the discomfort of people without disabilities. And so whatever you can do to provide an opportunity to include people with disabilities, it will start to make a change. You can't make a change by saying, this is how you should behave. You can make the change by developing these partnerships or these opportunities to work together, because that's when the barriers break down.
Agree. I don't know, sometimes the buttons turn on and off, at least with me, but I know that we only have 5 more minutes. I really want to thank these amazing leaders, and Kirk, thank you for joining us from California. Please join us at billion-strong.org. We don't know how this is all going to unfold. because we want to do it with you together. But I also, before I end, I'm going to ask Neil Milliken, yeah, if he would just give us like 3 minutes, I know this can be hard for him, and tell us why Atos was talking about this, and why does it matter to a global brand like Atos also, who is a French brand.
Thank you, Deborah. You caught me typing. I was actually typing up Susan's mic drop comment, which I will have forgotten now. So it's important for us to connect with the community because we want talent. We want talent from whatever part of our community, whether that be the disability community, people that identify in different ways. We care about having the right people with the right skills, and so we need to work on making sure that we can ensure that the people with the right skills have the opportunities first to find the jobs and then also to thrive in those jobs. So whether that be through process or policy, but also through accessibility initiatives, we are working steadily towards trying to make that a daily reality. And that's why we wish to engage.
Thank you, Neil. I've got to laugh because Susan's phone's going off up here and it's singing what you can see now. So, what you can be now, okay. Anyway, I know that we're out of time and it's late and I don't want to keep y'all, but we would love for you to join the efforts. It's going to take all of us, and we need all cultures, we need all corporations, we need everybody. But what we're not going to do at Billion Strong is try to duplicate what anybody else is doing, because we also don't need that in the world right now either. We need to support each other. So thank you to Zero Project. Thank you to my wonderful panels. Thank you, Neil, for letting me call you into it. And please join billion-strong.org. We really need you. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Deborah. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Kirk.